rebuttal to our last video blog, which revealed how the Los Angeles Unified School District used big law firms to pressure the IRS to drop penalties and sanctions for the illegal use of non-voter approved tax-exempt bonds known as Certificates of Participation, COPs. Here's Tony Patchett, former Special Assistant LA County District Attorney who headed the Belmont bond fraud investigation.
The entire project was funded with COPs, and because you had approximately $90 to $94 million in COPs, this meant that you could not use more than $9 million in the building of any structure other than the school. My investigation showed that approximately $17 million was spent in building the retail structure, and it was quite unique because it was built out for a supermarket similar to Ralph's or other big stores where you have to have a certain distance for the aisles.
It was intended to be a retail, right? And a mixed use.
There was to be a mixed use element. The primary purpose of the site is as a school and has to be as a school under California law. There was intended to be to assist the neighborhood, which was a very struggling neighborhood from an economic standpoint, retail focused on the neighborhood.
What is illegal in this particular project is the expenditure of more than 10% of the total amount of the COPs. So if you have approximately $90 million, you're only allotted to spend $9 million. When you spend $17 million, you got caught with your hand in the cookie jar.
Well, then let's talk about the private sector funds. Did they ever materialize for the project?
The private sector funds?
Yeah,
well,
wasn't the contractor supposed to finance the project?
The private sector didn't end up materializing because the school district stopped the project and got rid of all the people that had been part of the joint venture. Consequently, there was never any opportunity to put the private sector piece into place.
LAUSD did not stop the project. The project was stopped by the state of California, DTSC, because the project at the stage that it was in should not have been there because everybody was asleep at the switch.
Special Assistant District Attorney Patchett found that state law was violated when the district used tax-exempt bonds, COPs, for construction of a building designed for retail. Dominic Chambra explains the inconsistency.
The school, again, was on a hill, and it had to stack. There was a space under the school. We could use it for school, or we could use it for anything we needed to. The school was on a plateau, and if you drive by, you'll see that it's all above.
A freestanding school?
Freestanding school. But it was on top of a parking structure, which part of it would be used for the school, and part would be used if a district wanted to put offices in it, or if they wanted to use it for retail, or if they wanted to use it for other government activities, they could. But we had to build that podium in order to put the school on the same level.
I heard Mr. Chambra and Mr. Cartwright indicate the podium had to be built. Well, yes, it had to be built, but it didn't have to be built for retail structure. There was parking for commercial parking. There was the entire build-out for a retail store. There was loading dock that was there. And there was a lot of material that was stored on site that appeared to be for a retail establishment.
Why was COP, Certificates of Participation, money spent for building the parking facility for retail and for the retail? That's the question that keeps popping up all the time.
It wasn't to build the parking for the retail because the retail hadn't come in yet.
But wasn't the developer going to pay for the retail?
That was under negotiation.
Oh, it was never
finalized, never consummated. It was under negotiation. You had to build the podium. The school couldn't sit on air.
The fact that the project was being financed with certificates of participation and the retail was involved, did that pose a problem, a challenge for the district? And is this a problem you had to deal with?
No, it's not a problem because the certificates of participation do not finance the retail piece. That has unfortunately been another myth perpetrated in these studies. The retail was always separately financed by private sector sources. There was never any overlap.
I'm reminded of the movie Jerry Maguire where that famous line, "Show me the money." and I would like Mr. Cartwright to show me the money that was spent by a private developer on this case, because my investigation showed that only LAUSD funds were ever expended.
And consequently, there is no problem. And to this day, the IRS agrees with that position that was taken by the team originally.
Well, this is how they were finally able to escape from the grasp of IRS, is that LAUSD indicated, well, we've never put a retail structure in there, we put a frame in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to build exclusively a school. And then I say, if you build exclusively a school, you violated the law because you didn't give the contract to the lowest bidder. They ended up giving it to the highest bidder, which then, as I've indicated, took a bid of $95 million, which was the highest bid, and it's on its way to $500 million.
Both Dominic Chambra, Director of Planning and Development on Belmont, and David Cartwright, the senior partner with O'Melveny and Myers, claimed in our previous video blog that no crime had been committed because the retail portion of the project was never occupied. Here is Mr. Patchett's rebuttal.
If you look at what occurred in the Belmont Learning Complex of using $17 million of COP money to fund the project, and then to say, well, we haven't committed a crime because we don't really have the retail. However, the money has been spent. It's just like in any other crime. If you steal money, or if you take money with a certain intent, their intent here was to build a retail structure. That is what was occurred. They used the money.
The Los Angeles Unified School District is about to ask voters to approve an additional $3.8 billion bond measure. In the last 8 years, they've received approval for $9.7 billion, not to mention the matching state funds. The LA County Office of Education reports that the LAUSD has $1 billion of outstanding non-voter approved certificates of participation. Is there any way that the public can find out what is happening with all the taxpayers' money? We asked Mr. Patchett.
LAUSD has so many bank accounts, nobody can follow how they launder money. It's an impossibility.
We want to hear from you, the viewers. Who do you believe? Do you believe former prosecutor Patchett, who says that the school district illegally spent $17 million for a retail store design, building, and fixtures? Or do you believe Dominic Chambra and David Cartwright, who say even though the money was spent, the building was never occupied, therefore it was never a crime? Please cast your vote, and please leave your comments on our blog. Thank you.